The Canadian federal election is over, and unfortunately, Canadians have chosen to re-elect Mark Carney's Liberals, the same government we've had for the last 9 years. What does this mean for our economy and your money? After nearly a decade of Liberal policies, we've seen rising debt, stagnant growth, and a housing crisis that's locked out young families. Under Carney's leadership, it could get a whole lot worse. But unfortunately, that's what Canadians have chosen. And now we have to live with the consequences. I'm going to try and help you navigate what's ahead. In this video, I'm going to outline 6 critical economic hurdles facing Canadians as a result of this government's economic policies. Let's explore them and how you can protect your wealth. Canada stands at the crossroads because of the first big challenge: trade risk. U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods, like steel and aluminum, are already raising costs and threatening jobs, with Carney's Liberals doubling down on policies that strain our relationship with the U.S. We could well see higher prices and slower growth.
We will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles. Thank you. Canada, by the way, imposes a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products. They do the first can of milk. They do the first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%. So when they're figuring what's Canada charging, they say, oh, about 2%, 3%. But take a look at what happens down the road. When you look a little bit, it's not a pretty picture, and we don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country. And with countries like Canada, you know, we subsidize a lot of countries and keep them going and keep them in business.
What does this mean for you? Inflation could erode your savings, and job uncertainty may loom. The second challenge is a sluggish economy. Experts warn of stalled growth and potential job losses. After 9 years of Liberal mismanagement, Carney's promise of more spending, potentially $130 billion in new deficits, risk fueling inflation and delaying recovery.
All that's going to happen is that that's going to be much worse under Carney. So we already see that Carney set at serious odds, for example, with Danielle Smith in Alberta. And that's a continuation of the scrap that Smith and the West has been having with Trudeau and the Liberals and the East as a whole. That's not going to rectify itself. It isn't even obvious to me that the country itself, which the Liberals for the last 10 years have regarded as an entity with no real central identity anyways, it isn't obvious to me at all that the country's going to be able to survive another 4-year round of liberal, utopian, globalist, environmentalist, net zero catastrophe.
This underscores the need for financial preparedness. The third challenge is Canada's productivity crisis. We lag well behind other G7 economies due to red tape and low business investment. The Liberals' track record of overregulation stifles innovation, and Carney's plans may penalize key sectors like energy and manufacturing.
A lot of regulation, a lot of government interference, a lot of policies that don't have productivity in mind, that don't have business success in mind. And I think that's driven away a lot of our business and disincentivized folks from, spending, investing in Canada. In Canada, it's very hard to build a pipeline. New pipeline is just being built and it's finally started up, which is amazing. But I think it took about 20 years.
Yeah, it's the first one in a long time.
It shouldn't be 20 years. Similarly, the time it takes to get a building permit in Canada is extraordinarily long. Do you know in Phoenix, Arizona, you can get a building permit in 24 hours?
Low productivity means slower wage growth and fewer opportunities. Yet, with the right strategy, you can potentially thrive. We try to guide our clients to invest wisely, whether in growth sectors, personal savings plans, or dividend-paying whole life insurance. Then there's immigration. Over the past 9 years under Trudeau, we've taken in 3.5 million new immigrants. Before Trudeau, immigrants were counted less than 250,000 a year. It overwhelmed our system, drove up house costs, and has led to unemployment. Canada's system needs reform to align skills with jobs while managing infrastructure strain. The Liberals' past policies have created mismatches, and without change, economic growth could falter.
In the face of rising poverty, a housing crisis, and an influx of more than 1 million people last year alone, anti-immigrant sentiment is now growing, with 60% of Canadians now saying it's too high.
The country does not need another million Uber drivers and Tim Hortons workers.
Why are we bringing in so many people if we know for a fact that we don't have housing for them?
And immigrants themselves, hoping for a new life, are feeling betrayed.
The Canadian dream is something which is marketed really well. A lot of people in India especially fall for it real easy.
A smart immigration policy could drive prosperity, but it requires action. Sadly, Carney's Liberals have shown no appetite for real reform. Their reckless immigration policies have overwhelmed our cities, driven up costs, and left Canadians struggling. And they're now talking about growing our population to 100 million with the Century Initiative. How is that going to work, I wonder? The fifth challenge is fiscal policy. High government debt coupled with Carney spending plans risk crowding out private investment. Targeted spending on infrastructure could help, but only if it's disciplined, something the Liberals have struggled to deliver.
We're talking about $200 billion more in debt, actually, over the next 4 years of his platform. And also the spending does go up quite a bit. I think it's around $130 billion, if I recall. But it's certainly a very significant increase. I think one of the most important differences between the two parties is that when you read the Liberal plan, it's really a belief that the only way you can get growth is through governments working with the private sector, which is actually opposite to a different point of view, which I think comes out of the Conservatives' plan, is that the government has been in the way of growth through regulations and taxation.
By aligning your investments with Canada's growth sectors, you can see some opportunities that will come about regardless of Liberal policy. And finally, number 6. Carney's Liberals are now eyeing your home equity to fund their reckless spending. Taxing your house, the wealth you've worked so hard for, is a desperate move that could crush young families and retirees.
The facts are not up for debate. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, a federal crown corporation, has investigated the possibility of a home equity tax on more than one occasion, using taxpayer dollars to fund that research. That's not speculation. That's not hearsay. That's not fear-mongering. Those are facts, and they're irrefutable. The Liberal government paid a group called Generation Squeeze, led by activist Paul Kershaw, to study how the government could tap into Canadians' home equity, including their primary residences. Now, Kershaw, by the way, believes homeowners are lottery winners who didn't earn their wealth, but they lucked into it. That's the ideology being advanced to the highest levels of government. That's the ideology I have a problem with.
At McGuire Financial, we need to help you safeguard your assets with conservative strategies, ensuring your dream of home ownership isn't stolen by Liberal greed. The future of your money under Carney Liberal rule is undoubtedly going to be challenging. How will you respond? I'd love to hear your comments about your plans for financial preparedness. Please post them below. And if you need a little guidance from a financial professional, I'm always here to help. Give us a call or visit mcguirefinancial.ca because it's your money. I'm Glenn Zacher. Hit the thumbs up button and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.